What the Deck? Oh hey, Navilas here, from at What the Deck HS on Twitter. But enough of that. Get ready to listen to a bountiful, opalicious, yet sometimes ridiculous episode of Concede.
Greetings.
Hello.
Greetings.
My greetings.
Well met.
I greet you.
Greetings, traveler.
Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
I'm going to need to petition Merriam-Webster to add bountiful and opalicious to the dictionary now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 151 of Coin Concede. What was that, Botticus?
Oh, I was just going to say, man, Hat's name is so much better than ours because it can just fit anywhere naturally, whereas people really have to reach to get both your and my name to work in intros like that.
Hat is like half adjective.
Adjective?
Hat, oh my god.
Okay. Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, it's if we started a botany podcast, you would be all set.
Oh my gosh.
But we're probably not going to do that because I don't know anything about flowering.
Anyways, episode 151 of Coin Concede. Joining you from the Maelstrom, Louisiana, it is me, Appa. From Gadgets and New York, it's RidiculousHat.
I realize I said flowering and I meant gardening, but I don't know anything about either, which is kind of dictated by me calling it flowering.
And from Karazhan, California, it's Botticus.
Hey, everybody.
I love the enthusiasm right there.
That's kind of the dichotomy here.
So Coin Concede is supported in large part by you, the listener. If you'd like to find out how you can support us in the show and receive rewards in return, head on over to patreon.com/Coin Concede. And these patrons are correct for this week, right?
Yes.
So big thanks to our new patrons, Miguel and Paul D. We just need to add a Y at the end of that, and then we'll have Pauly D. Okay, moving on.
Are you stealing my bit?
I'm just talking about Jersey Shore, man. I don't know.
It's true.
All right. Anyways, so how's ladder been for y'all this past week? Let's start with that.
What's a ladder?
It's a thing that is used to climb to heights that I cannot normally reach if I want to get like the extra peanut butter out of the top shelf. I'm just kidding. Who has extra peanut butter? I eat that shit with a spoon. I'm gonna bleep that. So
Hat just firing it off early.
I didn't intend that, but I love peanut butter so much. So to answer your question, you weren't talking about peanut butter. I was. Ladder's been, I should have probably been practicing Quest Rogue, and I should have probably been practicing for THL, which is coming up this week, and UHL, which is coming up next week. Instead, I've been enjoying Mechathune Boomship Malygos Warrior, which is better than those words might indicate. It's a Fibonacci deck, and it doesn't play Execute, and it's really weird. But then you play the Warrior Mirror, and then you start drawing cards. You know your opponent is saying, this guy is really bad, and then you play Boomship, put down Malygos and Mechathune, double Inner Rage Whirlwind. By the way, you're dead now.
I wish the listeners could see Appa's face right now. It's so good.
There's definitely this kind of intrigue that I haven't seen in a while. The gears are turning.
Yeah, intrigue. That's definitely what I see.
Okay, so Appa, explain what your face means.
It means you had a big salad of words there that somehow come together and form a deck. I don't know. That sounds insane.
I've been eating more salad as an adult. It's a thing that I've been doing, and sometimes that salad has Mechathunes in it. I don't know, man. I should have been practicing Quest Rogue, but Warrior's actually really good now for the first time in a long time. And Odd Warrior's great. Hit Legend with it, still playing it, doing a lot of coachings with it. Coached actually Matt Jans. We started a run together, and he ended up with 12 wins in the Tavern Brawl last week. And lots of people have been playing it to success. It's it seems like one of the best decks in the format right now. So I've been enjoying that a lot, both in the coaching sessions and casual play. But then I saw Fibonacci post Boomship Malygos Mechathune Warrior, and I was like, I gotta do it. And I did, and he said, this seems like a meme, but it isn't. And he's right.
Yeah, whenever Fibonacci posts something and something looks awkward in the deck or like weird, I'm always like, I don't understand Warrior as well as I thought I did.
Yeah, and I want to point out,
whatever's in there just makes sense.
Well, I want to point out, be careful. There's a big difference between when Fibonacci posts Warrior decks and when Zetalot posts Priest decks. Fibonacci's decks, they're hard to play. There's usually something going on there. Zetalot's decks, I'm pretty sure he just lives in a different planet. And I've never been able to win with anything he's ever posted, and yet somehow he's still like always grinding top legend with these weirdo tempo priest combo decks. I don't understand.
Bro, I won a ton of games whenever Kobolds and Catacombs came out with like Overload Shaman, which is horrendous, but I don't know, man. It's just, I guess it's just like that class identity stuff. Like you play a class enough, you just like get in muscle memory and like, I don't know. But I'm sure he ekes out percentage points because he's just played a million games of Priest.
But look at this. The most recent list he posted was Mech Priest, including one upgradable Framebot.
Yeah, I died to that on turn 5 today.
Duskbreaker, Explodinator, 1 Replicating Menace, that's the 3-1 Magnetic that makes 3/1/1 Microbots, Amasi Horror, and Aziliax, and 2 War Gears, and Psychic Scream, and Shadow Reaper Anduin, and then Alex. Of course! I don't understand.
Maybe it wasn't that exact deck, but I got trashed by Mech Priest earlier today. He went Framebot on 2, upgrade it to a 2/10 with the taunt thing on 3. Divine Spirit Interfire you 20.
Yep, that'll do it.
Oh yeah,
that'll do it.
Make it.
I mean, you got to think of the benefit that you get from playing decks like that, though, because everybody on ladder is so used to playing all these matchups. They know all their matchups inside and out, and then all of a sudden they see a priest on the other side of the board, and what you just shrug your shoulders and how do you mulligan? What is this even? So he's got to get a ton of percentage points just from he's been playing against the same decks over and over and over again, knows the ins and outs of all the matchups, how to win and how to lose them. Also, just being a priest player for so long, just really knows the mechanics really well, and everybody else is just kind of guessing what they're supposed to be doing because, as it seems, all of the decks or all the cards in his deck are picked at random. Well, specific randomness. I don't know how to describe
specific random.
Yeah,
Botticus 2018. All right. So, have you played much ladder at all?
On my ladder, no. I've been doing some coaching sessions with Quest Rogue, which I'm very happy to do because I really enjoy me some Quest Rogue. But I have been playing a lot of World of Warcraft, as I was alluding to last week and did not say out loud, but I've been playing a lot of that. But when I have loaded up Hearthstone, I have been playing a good amount of the Puzzle Lab, and I have one puzzle left. I just got to that puzzle today. I knocked out a bunch of puzzles that I was having trouble with fairly recently that just all of a sudden kind of clicked with me. But I also realized that any puzzle involving patron, I don't know how I did them, but I did them. I just kind of click buttons until the thing completed, and I don't really know why I beat those puzzles, but I did. So yeah, I don't have to do them again.
There was one puzzle that Cinder was asking me about that I had already completed, and I was like, I don't remember how I did it. I just did a bunch of different like iterations until end turn didn't turn green anymore.
Yeah, that's one of my issues, I think, with it, or at least the way I decided to do the puzzle labs is instead of really going through each puzzle and figuring out what the absolute correct way to do it was, I would go in and start doing things until the puzzle started making sense, and then I would complete it. So unfortunately, I don't think that's as good for my development as a Hearthstone player as if I would have just studied the puzzle and tried to do it in the fewest number of tries as possible. but I do think there's a lot of very relevant information in there that was helpful. I think maybe in a few months after I've forgotten how to do a lot of the puzzles, maybe I should log over to a different server and try to take a little bit more time with everything instead of just trying to knock out all of the puzzles as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I actually have been using the puzzle lab as like a bit of a, I guess, training mode, because some of them are really difficult and they're very intricate and complex, and they teach you a good bit about different parts of the game that you may either think you know more than you do about, or you might just need some teaching in that aspect. Like there was one with Wild Pyromancer where you had to understand that you could get an extra trigger off of it on like Bittertide Hydra to do lethal.
Spoiler alert, kind of. Just so in case people haven't completed that or are looking for spoiler free, but I was going to actually talk about that one too, because I don't like that one was necessarily included, because the interaction does not seem,
it is very counterintuitive.
Yeah, the interaction does not seem like it should even be part of the game the way that it happens, but I guess it is useful information for the people trying to complete it. But it wasn't even one of the final ones to do, so
Yeah.
kind of weird.
That scenario is called Toasted Hydra because it happened to disguise toast. It was a famous scenario that happened in a tournament, and they actually talked about this on Blizzlet, where the Chris and Spy from 1600 Dust guested on, and they talked about it a lot, and Spivey had an opinion that I agree with. I'm not saying it doesn't work this way. I'm saying I don't like that it works this way, which is what I think that you two are leaning into. I agree that, like, if they're going to keep the game mechanic this way, then sure. But it seems, I'm not going to say inconsistent, because there's a very clear delineation between how missiles, right, rag missiles, arcane shots, and all that work, and how AoE effects work. That if something is at 0 health, it can't get hit by more missiles, but if something is at 0 health, it can get hit by more AoE, except for Bouncing Blade. Can't get hit more. So I think that if you make it so that when something's at 0 health, it doesn't take more damage, it would make a lot of sense to me, and the fact that it doesn't, and the game requires you to learn the mechanic to get through a free-to-play, casual, freely accessible mode, I think it's going to be a stumbling block for a lot of players, and I think it is an indicator that maybe that mechanic and that game function isn't well executed right now in a way that helps the game be more accessible.
Yeah, there's some puzzles, like I brought that up because that was one that took me a long time to figure out, and it was an interaction that I didn't really understand that well, and to be fair, I still really don't understand it too well. But there's some puzzles in there that are like really great training tools that I've been really like trying to think about when I'm doing them. I'm not trying to jam out different iterations of the same turn. I'm trying to really think about why it is this way. But there's some puzzles that are just like, they're not realistic scenarios that could ever happen in Hearthstone, and in those I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm just gonna look up the solution, and then I move to the next one until like something pops up that's another really interesting scenario. But
I am happy that I have yet to look up a solution to a puzzle yet. It's taken me hours or maybe an hour on one or two of them, but I have not looked up a solution yet. So I'm happy that I got there.
I think I've looked up 4 or 5 of them just because I tried them at first, then got frustrated, and I was like, this isn't real life. I don't want to have to figure this out.
Man, I don't know if my pride could take that. I will probably end up looking a solution. I haven't gotten as far as you guys have, because I've also been using this as a training mode, but not in the way you think of, in that I've been playing it on the train because I don't have to worry about getting disconnected. So it's an excellent training mode of Hearthstone, but also that means I haven't gotten quite as far as you all because I'm only playing it when I'm commuting. Appa's face is rolling his eyes. But, like, he's not actually rolling his eyes, his face is rolling its eyes. You know what I mean?
It's a training mode.
Yeah, it's right. For the train.
So I guess I can talk about what I've been doing, because I think we kind of decided that I was the one who had played the most Hearthstone this week, right? Because you all have a problem.
I mean, likely. I have played for a few hours, but I wouldn't consider it really playing Hearthstone because I don't know that puzzle mode is really. It is a mode, but I don't put it on the same level as actually queuing up a ladder game, which I haven't done for a while.
The only
Well,
problem I have, Appa, is that the Horde Emissary gave 340 armor yesterday, and the Alliance one gave a weapon that I really need. That is my problem.
Yeah, there's so many problems.
Anyways, go on.
Yeah, I've played a good bit of ladder this past week/2 weeks, since I wasn't on last week. But I don't really have the results to show for it in terms of rank. But that's okay, because that's what I've been trying to focus on, is just having fun and not caring at all about what my rank is. And I found that that's more enjoyable, leads me to play better because I'm not putting that much pressure on myself and I'm not missing things by tunnel visioning on other things. And I'm slowly climbing on NA, slowly climbing on EU. I've really been playing a lot more on EU because I only have rogue cards on there, so I'm kind of building out from the rogue class. And I really enjoy that experience. It reminds me a lot of when I first started playing Hearthstone on my NA account, and I built Face Hunter first, Mid Range Hunter after, and then like branched out into Aggro Druid and Mid Range Druid and that kind of stuff. And it's really, really refreshing and freeing to not have to worry about what's the best deck that I should be playing on ladder and what should I be like trying to counter queue into other people, and just sticking with one deck and learning it really well. It's been a good and refreshing experience, and I really don't care about how I finish this month, partially because you have a month to give up or scratch off your lowest month in terms of playoff points, and also because the highest ladder climbs I've ever had have just been when I was just playing Hearthstone, just to play Hearthstone and not stressing about ranks and stuff. So I think that's just the approach I'm going to try and take with Hearthstone again from now on, is just try and play well and try and play the best that I can, because I mean it's a card game and I enjoy playing tight and playing clean and stuff, but not to put pressure on myself because I'm not my rank, and rank doesn't actually matter at the end of the day. So yeah, that's what my
Man.
ladder experience has been.
If I had time travel, I would go back in time to when I first loaded up Hearthstone and just turn my own chair around, just look in the face like, no matter what you do, listen to me. Dagger pass on 2. Because you get to be a new player, but you know that on turn 2 you just click that button and don't hit anything. It's like magic.
I think Rogue was the last class I ever played because it's Rogue and it's spooky. It's a spooky class.
Yeah, well, it's like, it's so intimidating because whenever you lose to it, they just like, they do nothing, then and then you're dead.
Yeah.
But then when you play with it, it's like, well, I what do I do?
I started playing it after Worlds 2015, whenever Osaka won with like
Oil Rogue. Oh my god.
So I got to watch some really good Rogue play. So when I started playing Rogue, I knew to dagger pass on 2 unless I had nothing to do on 3. And that just blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, I have so much like tempo moving on into the later points in the game. This is so crazy. It felt like I was cheating against like the other newer players.
Man, I wish I'd had that experience because I built Oil Rogue before I had even seen that, and back when I was really, really bad. And I lost to it, again, because they would go SI, and then they'd prep out a Tinker Sharpseed Oil and hit me in the face for 10, and then Blade Flurry for another 4 and clear the board. And then when I played it, I'd be like, nothing. Dagger attack, re-dagger, prep sprint on 4, die immediately. And it's just going back to it now, when they did that Tavern Brawl with the Hall of Fame decks, and I got to play Oil Rogue again, but I knew how Rogue worked, I was like, what did I miss? What did I miss?
Man, that Tavern Brawl is awesome.
Oh, it's so
I
good.
legit wish that was just kind of its own game mode. It's like play with world champion decks for people who are either new or just want to play with that. That Tavern Brawl is fantastic. I want it to come back. Anyways, we're getting super off track. So that was my experience for ladder. I'm having a good time in Hearthstone. Sounds like you guys are enjoying WoW a good bit. how about we get into the news before we get derailed again?
We both still like Hearthstone. Please believe us.
Yep. I'm going to play a bunch on Friday because I have jury duty. And they have internet, but they don't have a place, good enough internet for me to play WoW. So I'm going to play a lot of Hearthstone.
You're
That's
really
gonna be
selling it.
You said you have jury duty?
Yeah.
Can you please just yell in the middle of court, objection?
Hopefully I don't see the inside of a courtroom.
Oh, man.
That'd be ideal.
Also, Appa,
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you, but Phoenix Wright isn't how that actually works. And it's not
I'm
like
very aware.
it's not like you have lawyer duty where you're called and it's like you are a lawyer now. It's jury.
Look, man, you can meme. Don't let your memes be dreams. Dreams be memes. Whatever. News highlights. Let's go.
So there's not a lot of news this week. We have a couple things highlighted here that we'll talk about. The biggest thing that happened that there's just a lot to discuss about was Thijs was streaming at Gamescom 2018 and he was joined by Iksar and they had a pretty long discussion about a bunch of things just about the meta and kind of what it's like being one of the devs on Team 5 and just there was so much great information in there. I had a chance to watch a good portion of it, and then there was a nice little write-up on Reddit that goes over a lot of the points that they made in there. But it was overall just a really cool thing to watch, and there's just a ton of information in here. Like Quest Rogue has become really popular. Iksar was looking at the stats before he left for Gamescom, and it was very popular deck when he left. And one of the things that they talked about was they really don't want Hearthstone to be all 90-10 matchups, which they don't think it's quite currently at right now, but it kind of is tending towards that way, and they're really taking a look at it. They're also saying that Giggling was supposed to be one of the most powerful cards in the set. They expected it to be, but they did not expect it to be nearly as powerful as it turns out that it is. They really like having defensive neutral cards that you can put into decks that are not very expensive dust-wise for people to attain. So cards like Sledge Belcher and Giggling Inventor and Rotten Applebaum are all cards that they really want to make sure that every class has access to as sort of defensive countermeasures. A few other things they talked about were wild balance, because it seems that a lot of people are feeling that wild is somewhat out of balance right now with especially Juicy Psych Melon. I see Appa nodding his head, and they were talking about how they're not sure exactly what they want to do with Wild. They want it to feel like a different game experience, but they don't necessarily want people dying on turn 3 and 4 to just ridiculous stuff. And right now, Wild's in a place where the majority of it is, I think, as Hat would say, probably design mistakes and slightly buffed up standard decks. So they're definitely looking at Wild, but not really sure exactly the direction they want to take with it. And then some of the other things, another thing was counter queuing and how it's actually a very controversial topic, both internally and externally, about whether playing the same person twice in a row should be something that occurs in game. So I'm going to throw it to Hat first and just kind of get your thoughts about what you read up on about this little chat with Iksar.
The most important thing, I think, I didn't turn this back on for you guys, so you
Did
can't
you
hear
say
me.
first or
There
Hat
we go.
first?
No, I was talking and
Hat.
I didn't turn on the thing that lets you guys hear me. We'll fix
okay.
that later. So I think the most important thing is that Iksar's transparency before he's made a decision is super refreshing. Because before, the Team 5 was very transparent after a decision had been made. And otherwise, this entire conversation would have been, it's on our radar. Just that phrase about 10 times. So I really like the transparency and how he digs into things, and he's not afraid to say, Quest Rogue is popular, we're looking at Giggling Inventor a lot, at levels of play where people make less mistakes, the matchups tend to be more skewed because the better players, or the better matchups aren't full of misplays and changing the nature of the game. And I like that they're looking at counter queuing, especially at High Legend, and indicating that a lot of people really dislike it, and not sure if there's a way to answer it. And in fact, he mentions the way to opt out of this is you count to 20. 20 seconds. And you can just count to 20 or 20 Mississippis and just not deal with it. But people hit the button and they play against the same person again because of that ingrained behavior, especially when you're playing thousands and thousands of games. You just click the button. That's what you do. It's built in, right? Think about the number of times you watch a stream, the game ends, they click the button and then go to the bathroom. Why not just wait? Because it's ingrained. So I like that they're talking about it and that they discuss nerf spreading plague, still very powerful, still frustrating to play against, that they're talking about these cards in real world impact. And Wild, I think, is the thing to talk about the most, because what is Wild supposed to be is a really valid question. It is full of design mistakes, but typically the formats where the most cards are legal is a hall of fame of design mistakes. It is meant to showcase these old, powerful, broken cards all competing against each other and who is the winner. And I hope that someday they make a format that is all the original cards unnerfed. Every card in the game in their original printed form. I would love to see that. I would love to see original Undertaker Hunter against the world. And maybe that format would be wildly unbalanced because it's supposed to be. But, like, I want Hearthstone Legacy. I want Hearthstone Vintage. And Wild, I think, will end up being an in-between format, or the format it's in now will get more and more broken. They might make another one where it's like double standard. You get 4 years of cards instead of 2. They could do any number of things. Right now, I don't think Wild has that in the same way that it should, because I was doing a lot of Wild coaching sessions this week. A lot of people are trying it out, and we're playing a lot of Star Aligners. And for those that don't know how that works, Juicy Psych Melon draws you Star Aligner, Medivh, Kun, and Aviana. And when you get to 10 mana, you go Aviana, Kun, Medivh, Star Aligner, 7 to you and your board, except if you have Bran, it's 7 twice, and you have the second Star Aligner in your deck, it's 14 twice, which is 28. And Juicy Psych Melon says 4 mana draw all of those combo pieces at the same time. And because you also get to play Biology Project and Poison Seeds in Wild, you're pretty safe. And we had a couple coaching games where we killed on turn 5. And I don't think that every class has that. And by I don't think, I mean they really don't. And we played against the other most powerful deck we saw from Boomsday was the Metal Tooth Leaper deck, where it's all the new mechs in Hunter, and then you play Metal Tooth Leaper and they all get permanent Savage Ward. They all get Branching Pass for 2 attack, and then they hit you in the face really fast. But even when we faced against that, and a bunch of them were Death Rattle, deal 7 to you and your board 4 times, they're all gone now. So I don't know if it's broken or overpowered. I don't know a lot about Wild. I know that playing it felt dirty, and that usually means something is a little bit off. So I like this conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoy Wild a lot. I don't play nearly as much anymore as I used to, but I still keep up with the format. I watch Taylor play a lot. I'm caster for Into the Wild League now, so I'm kind of more in touch with the format than I even was when I was still playing in it. And I enjoy the fact that there's a lot of really, really strong cards. But I also think that Druid is too strong in Wild. Not because it's... I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. It is too busted, but I don't think decks that are too strong should be nerfed. I think decks that are too strong in a way that can't be really interacted with should be touched, or are too strong to where it's like head and shoulders above all the other classes in the format, which is what Druid is now. And I don't even think that that's really a result of Psych Melon all that much. Psych Melon's part of the issue, but I think the underlying issue there is honestly the fact that Druid has been overtuned since the game came out. Druid has really, really busted basic and classic cards. If you're Wild Growth and Nourishing into anything at all of relevance, those cards are nuts. So I think Psych Melon is exacerbating the issue that Druid is really strong, just in a vacuum. But yeah, I think Psych Melon could be touched. I think Wild Growth and Nourish getting touched could have a positive impact on the format as well. I think the format's in a good place otherwise. I think all the decks are doing strong things equally well. The only one that really feels terrible to play against is probably Big Priest. So once you get Coin Barns, you charge, pulling your charge, then it feels terrible. But I mean, those games are few and far between. Druid just does what Druid does, just really consistently now, and it does it much faster and much more consistent than everything else. So I think that's probably what they're going to address first, is something within Druid.
And the best counter to the Star Aligner version is just you take out the Star Aligner in Medivh and put in Togwaggle Azalina. You just take their deck.
There's kind of a weird... Is dichotomy the right word? I'm going to go with dichotomy. There's a weird dichotomy in the format where you're either playing the Druid decks with Psych Melon or decks with Dirty Rat. Brand Dirty Rat.
That is the right word. Yes. Though there is a third class of decks that are Baku decks that can't play Dirty Rat, and so they play 1/1s for 1. Like Odd Paladin plays. Yeah. But like apparently is also good. And again, I don't know anything about Wild, but yeah, it seems
well, they get to play Lost in the Jungle and Muster for Battle and Level Up and Quartermaster and Dr. Boom. So they're doing the fair thing, but they're doing it the Paladin way, which is
the Patch of the Pirate is in there. It's still even post nerf that's not super fair.
Yeah, they even talked a lot about Druid in the conversation on stream, and a lot of it was about Druid and Standard and how everybody kind of thought Druid was going to be super busted, and it's just still doing busted things, but it's not in a overpowered place right now in terms of Standard. But they also talked about how they already nerfed a ton of basic and classic Druid cards, but a lot of the things it's still doing are just really, really broken, like Wild Growth and Nourish especially. So they're definitely keeping an eye on it. As Hat said, it's really good to hear the transparency. The last two items I had on here was just that unfortunately they're not currently working on a set involving Illidan and the Burning Crusade, which makes me a little sad because that set sounds... I didn't know I wanted that set until they said they're not working on it, and now I want them to be working on it. And then that Wizbang actually used to pull random decks that other people were playing on ladder, which I think is a really interesting concept, but they said they ended up not doing that because if you queued up a game and got the basic mage deck from other people just starting out on the game, it would feel real bad and not be very fun. So that's why they ended up changing it to what it is. And I actually saw another article, which I'll post in here later, just about the effectiveness of Wizbang and how good it actually is, how good all of the decks have been performing. So I'll add that into the show notes if you want to check that out. But the other news item we have is just an off-meta report that was on the Play Hearthstone website. Couple interesting decks here. If you're looking for something a little bit off the beaten path, we have a big warrior deck, which of course features the Boom Ship. It is not Hat's weird, funky Mech Cthulhu Boom Ship deck, but it does do some pretty sweet things, it looks like. Essentially, I put Big Warrior, but I guess I meant Recruit Warrior, because it's doing most of the Recruit Warrior things, but it also features such all-stars as Bulldozer and the Boom Ship. Was not expecting Bulldozer to see play, but it's pretty good if you play Dr. Boom beforehand. And then a couple other decks here. We have Egg Paladin featuring Crystology to pull Meat Wagon, which pulls your 2 decks or your 2 eggs from your deck, which is kind of sweet. And then a Dragon Priest, which I don't know how much faith I have in this, but it's called Dragon Priest, but it's really just Mind Blast Priest with some dragons in it. So these are a couple other options. I don't know if either of you like any of these lists, had a chance to look at them, want to talk about them, but I think they're all pretty interesting.
The Egg Paladin one looked a little interesting, because didn't Muzzy bring something like this to a tournament recently with Meat Wagon and eggs in Paladin?
He did.
Yes.
How well did he do, Hat? Do you know?
I mean,
I
regardless of how
remember,
well he
so-
did, he definitely had faith in the
I
deck
mean,
enough to bring it to a
He's
tournament.
Muzzy, so like probably
Oh,
fine,
yeah.
but he didn't make the top 8 if I recall correctly. He's eliminated in the round of 16. I think that was Copa.
Still
Gotcha.
top 16. Is
Yes.
pretty solid,
Um,
especially in the field that he was in.
And I'm sure you're asking yourselves, but isn't this the deck that Hat played Asmo in a mirror on Twitch? And the answer is yes. That is what happened. So, and of course, I'm glad to answer that question. So, me and Asmo.
I didn't know I was asking that, but I'm glad I did now.
Yes. So there was a list very, very similar to this that was going around a little while ago. That was Umbra Cube, Meat Wagon, Mechano Egg. Had the Kangaroo's Endless Army, didn't have the Dino size, but had the other same basic idea. And it was a weird mirror match. Very, very strange mirror match. But, Asmo was super fun to play against. We went back and forth, and Kangaroo's Endless Army was the last card in my deck. And he had me down to 5. And I fatigued he had me down to I think 3. And the only out he had after I played Kangaroo's Endless Army and got back a life-stealing egg and a life-stealing 8/8, both the Divine Shield, was to draw a second Consecration, put me to 1 to fatigue out, but he didn't get there, so barely got there. Super fun deck. I think there is something there, and we're going to talk about Magnetic later in the show. It's a little clunky, and it's obviously still being refined, and there are a lot of really good strategies in the format that are probably better than this right now. But I think that there's something here, because the synergies feel pretty powerful and pretty persistent. It's really, really hard to wipe this deck off the board once it gets going. All it has to do really is survive and then find a way to beat down the decks that don't interact via the board that much.
Cool. So that's all I had for news this week. Why don't we get into some tournaments?
It's the grand tournament.
So tournaments this week. This was kind of an off week, all things considered. There were the global games, and the global games will be ongoing now. The Boomsday break is over, but we do have we have a few matches. We have the matches every week, and a few of them are being casted on the Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Definitely, again, a different kind of format than we're used to, and it's really hard to make a metaphor. Spoilers, I'm not going to give you a tournament meta here, because again, the HGG format, the way it works is that you bring 9 deck lists, you go through a pick and ban phase where you alternate pick the deck you get to keep, ban 2 of your opponents, pick 2 of your own, ban 2, and you go through until you have 5 decks remaining. You put them all in a secret order, you play 1 game with each deck in that order, period, no matter what the matchup is, and no matter if it wins or loses, you're playing 1 game with each deck. So it's entirely random queue order, and then see how a particular matchup goes. Really hard to use that to guide a format, and it's kind of not great for consistency, because in this format especially, like Bot was talking about earlier in Iksar's chat, there's a lot of polarized matchups. You queue the wrong one up, you have no way of knowing what it is and no way of changing it. So, still, entertaining to watch, good casting. We have 3 undefeated teams, China, Brazil, and the Ukraine. Now, there are a bunch of teams that are 1 win out from being undefeated that have 3 of 4 matches won. Poland, Spain, the Czech Republic, Chile, Taiwan, Singapore, Switzerland, Hong Kong, the UK, South Korea, Netherlands, and Bulgaria. And we have a bunch of teams as well that have been eliminated. They have 3 losses. They've been knocked out of the event. Finland, Slovakia, Greece, France, Kazakhstan, Austria, Australia, Hungary, Israel, Turkey, Croatia, Malaysia, Argentina, the Philippines, and Mexico. So, we've got 3 more weeks. We've got week 5, 6, 7, and I think week 8. I think we've got 4 more weeks left of regular season play. It's going on right now. It broadcasts Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so kind of an awkward time for us. We're recapping what happened about a week ago. But next week also we'll have EU playoffs to go along with this. Tons of data coming. Wicked Good actually finished his deck list browser and data visualization tool tonight during the cast, so we'll be looking over that and giving you lots of juicy numbers next week. And we do have a game for you to watch this week. A really, really interesting one. That was everyone's favorite Quest Rogue against Token Druid. So Insane from the Ukraine was playing Token Druid, and Findan from the Czech Republic was playing Quest Rogue.
Insane from the Ukraine.
Insane in the Ukraine.
That's
yes.
fantastic.
It reminds me of Cypress Hill, of course. So the matchup is close. It tends to drift towards the Token Druid, but it's not a hard counter, right? It's a 45-55 matchup. And Findan's opening hand is Quest, Sonya, Shadow Step, and then draws Brewmaster. Pretty good opener. Seems solid. But both draws are kind of awkward. Neither player does anything for the first 3 turns. We get a Brewmaster and Shadow Step from Findan. And we go Violet Teacher, and then the next turn summon the second Violet Teacher from Insane, but no ramp. Now, double Violet Teacher is pretty good development, but then the Brewmaster turns into a quest reward thanks to that Shadow Step and a second Brewmaster that is top decked. Because when you go Brewmaster, Brewmaster, Shadow Step into Brewmaster, 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 that's the quest reward, and then he preps it with his last 2 mana on turn 6, seems pretty good. But then the double Violet Teacher, well, when you go double Violet Teacher, you go Power the Wild Soul of the Forest. I have 7 minions, and they all give me 2/2, so I'm going to attack you in the face. And the Quest Rogue is down to 11, with only a Brewmaster on board, a 4/4 Brewmaster. Savage Roar would have been lethal. There isn't one. And then Giggling Inventor and Scalehide. Everyone's favorite recovery mechanic. Gain 4 life. Make 2 4/4 Bubble Taunts with a 4/4 behind it. But that board gets cleared. And then there are 6 2/2s and a 1/2 Poisonous Spider against a Soul Giggling Inventor. But you know what goes great there? Imagine if you played Sonya Shadow Dancer and then traded that Giggling Inventor into the Spider, and then got yourself a 1-mana Giggling Inventor that was a 4/4 that made 2 4/4s. Well, that's what happens. More 4/4s. And more 4/4s. And Sonya survives that turn. And then next turn, the Giggling Inventor survives, gets Brewmastered and played again. And then Sonya gets Ultimate Infestationed, but Findan's board, the Quest Rogue board, has 7 4/4s, 2 of which are 4/4 taunts with Divine Shield. 7. But you know what's good against a wide board when you have an empty board and you're a druid? How about Spreading Plague? How about that card? So we got 7 1/5s, and then Findan draws for the turn, and looks at the board, and looks at his hand, and says, you know what? Vanish. I'll get back my Giggling Inventor and 3 Annoyatrons, and you can have some Scarabs. So, recovers that board, plays more stuff. Plays a deckhand, plays a board, charges in, plays an Annoyatron. Whispering Woods plus 2 of the Scarabs. Fine, just slows things down. But now we have Soul of the Forest in hand. And now the board is 7 minions again, because Quest Rogue just plays a bunch of 1-mana crap that fills up the board. And now we go Spreading Plague, Soul of the Forest. And that right card in the hand, by the way, that the Token Druid drew, an Insane drew, it's called Savage Roar. Maybe you've heard of it. And all of a sudden in the next turn, despite all these trades, all 7 Scarabs survive. How about Savage Roar and bring you down as a Quest Rogue to 4? 4 is good, right? Now, both swipes have been used. Vicious Scalehide comes down, goes back up to 8. UIU down to 3. But then Quest Rogue is trying to survive, has another Giggling Inventor, has exactly 3 taunts, 1 with Divine Shield. And so that's 4 attacks. And Token Druid, through the Glacial Shard, has 4 attackers left and the Malfurion Hero Power. And the game barely ends after this constant back and forth of both sides having full boards, and then the other side having a full board, then the other side having a full board, and the other side having a full board, and then finally, 20 cards into the deck, the first Savage Roar is drawn. And it goes back the way it started, with the Token Druid way ahead and the Quest Rogue on the back foot. So it is beatable. But I will say, watching this game made me glad that I was not playing against the Quest Rogue, because that was incredibly frustrating to watch. And the casters were they were calling the game decided for the Quest Rogue after the 3rd Giggling Inventor was played.
I love listening to Hat story time.
This game is bonkers. You should watch it. You should absolutely watch it. It was crazy to watch. It was recommended to us by a listener last week. I shouted him out in the show. I don't have his name immediately handy, but thank you for the shout out. Great game to watch. And that does it for the HGG week 4. But I'm not going to ask you if you watched this. I know where you were. And Botticus, you were roguing it up, freshly reborn on the EU ladder. You didn't happen to catch me, did you?
I did not.
Yeah, I think you said bot twice.
I thought I said Appa the second time.
But-
I don't know. I talk fast. Doesn't matter. So the point is, next week we've got HCT EU Season 2 playoffs begins. The first playoffs of Season 2. The decks are out as of today. The information has been analyzed and compiled during the show as we recorded tonight. Go look at Wicked Good on Twitter if you want to take a look at that. We'll analyze it thoroughly next week along with the results. And Global Games Week 5 are underway. And the Asian Games, which is the Olympics for the Asian continent, will have Hearthstone exhibition matchups. And I believe that's this weekend too, right, Bot?
Yeah, it's the 30th starting at 7 p.m. Pacific. So actually a perfect time for me to be able to start watching. So that's actually tomorrow, about an hour before we're recording now. Wait, but then so I guess it's not super relevant for the listeners because this won't be out until maybe after it's done, unless it's over multiple days. Well, the tournament begins tomorrow, so maybe it's over a few days, but anyway, yes.
So patrons, you're getting the heads up, and I'm going to mark this episode like 4 times to put in relevant information here over Bots Babbling. That does it for our tournament section, and it's kind of a lull this week a little bit, but that game was super fun. Definitely go check it out. It's the Ukraine versus Czech Republic last week, Game 4. Super worth checking out. And I think it's time for some Dexplanations.
So this week, Dexplanations is going to be about hits and misses of our predictions for 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 episodes ago, I think, is when we started predicting, in that range. But anyways, we obviously got some cards wrong. We got some cards right. And we're going to talk about why we got some cards, why we predicted that they were strong and why we're correct, why we're wrong, and kind of how the meta is formed from then on. And first off, I wanted to talk about the boogeyman in the room, or at least what people thought the boogeyman was going to be as a result of the card reveals. And that is Floop, his Gloop, Green Petal Florist, and Juicy Psych Melon. I think 3 of these cards were really overhyped, at least for standard, and I was guilty of overhyping Psych Melon as well. But Floop's Gloop, Dream Petal Florist, and Juicy Psych Melon are not actually the super scary end of the world boogeymen that we thought they were going to be. Floop isn't really either. He's very good, but he's not the strongest. Like he doesn't single-handedly make Malagos Druid the best deck in the game. Not close, if that makes sense.
One of the biggest issues that I think people did not really think about as much is they just assumed Druid just had all of the cards from their deck in their hand at all periods in time because they draw so many cards. But realistically, you don't always have the Floop in your hand when you play the creature you want it to copy. So I think that's a bigger drawback than was anticipated when people were kind of talking about it, but at the same time, I also think Floop has performed pretty well.
He's
compared to some of the other cards.
Definitely still really, really strong and makes the Druid decks that much more powerful and consistent, but not the oh my god, the world's ending. Why'd they print this? GG Blizzard, uninstall.
I also think Biology Project is another card that could have been on this list of
I was
perceived cards to be crazy.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually one of my cards that I wanted to talk about a little bit later on. But
Same.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we were pretty spot on about Gloop, if I remember correctly. I think we came to a consensus where people just rated this card like 10 out of 10, gonna be nuts. Why'd you print this? But in reality, it requires a ton of setup, and it's actually a pretty big investment you have to put into it to get it to do anything.
Talking about gloop
So-
or
I'm
fluke?
pretty gloop.
It's
Fluke's
by
fluke.
far the biggest regret of any card I crafted this expansion. By a huge margin, my worst craft this expansion.
I actually ended up crafting it last week because I have most of the other cards from the set, and I wanted to play Mechathune Druid. And I think that's the only deck that it goes in, really.
Yep, I've tried it in Token Druid a couple times, and Token Druid with the Treant package is nice and cute, but it's actually just way better if you take old Token Druid and put in, well, it's a 5-mana 2/1 that also makes 2 1/2s with Taunt and Divine Shield.
Nice segue, Hat.
I
Sure,
tried
we're
to
talk about
I tried
this
to tell
giggling
people.
Where were we on board with this one? I just remember where I was. Because I remember being like, this is probably one of my sleeper cards, I think, from the set, is what I chose it as in one of the episodes. Something along those lines. I thought it was getting really undervalued, and that card seemed nuts.
I definitely was on a similar page to you, but I know you were much higher on it than I was. I was just thinking that it was going to be a very viable card. I was definitely not to the level where it's going to be in basically every deck.
Yeah, I wasn't even to that level. I thought it was going to be just a real solid card, like a 7 out of 10 or something like that. But it turned out to be, it's like a 9 or a 10 out of 10, just because it's so flexible. It's a fantastic aggro card. It's a fantastic like defensive card too. So even though I was really high on it, I think I missed the bar on exactly how good it was going to be. But yeah, but where were you on this one, Hat? I don't remember.
So I'm going to answer your question by giving a bunch of information that isn't necessary, as is my custom, and the custom of my
Very
people.
cool.
And by my people, I mean just me. So my rating scale, it's 1 through 6, and it's really 1 through 5, and 6 is an outlier. 1, laughably bad compared to Master of Ceremonies. If you know what that card does without looking it up, I'm proud of you. And you dust this every time. Do either of you know? It is a neutral epic from TGT, a 3-mana 4/2. When you play it, the battle cry, if you control a minion with spell damage, it gets +2/+2. Yeah, you've never heard it before. It has great sound effects. But
I'm sure I played it in an arena at least once.
you
but
wouldn't have picked it
that-
over other epics. It's terrible.
That's fair. Never mind.
It's a card that you forget exists. It's so bad. So you dust regular copies of this card. You dust every copy you open to this.
That card would be alright as a common, right?
No, you would not play it. In the current format, you wouldn't play it. You would not play it in
no.
Spell Damage Shaman.
I think he's saying as a common for purposes.
Yeah.
But anyways.
That's what I was trying to say, because you were
Okay.
saying if it's an epic, you never pick it. But
Yeah,
if it's
we're
a
getting
common,
off track. Let us
it's a Jungle Panther, kind of.
I promise the card's issue was not the rarity. Promise that's not the issue here. Anyways, a 2 is either a very narrow tech card or an inefficient card that may be required in extreme metas like Eater of Secrets or Cenarius. You dust the golden copies, you might keep the regular ones. A 3 is a solid inclusion. It doesn't make the deck exist, but probably goes in it if you have the support. This is your true silver champion. You don't dust it, you don't craft it. A 4 makes a deck more viable because it exists. That's your Vilespine Slayer. You hope to open it and you consider crafting it, even if it's not a legendary and epic. A 5 out of 5 makes a strategy viable. Think Blood Reaver Gul'dan. It is a day 1 craft. A 6 is a format warper, so overpowered that it's always going to be good regardless of the meta. Makes the meta tilt around that card. It means the card will be nerfed if it's getting a 6. I rated nothing a 6. This is Undertaker, Spirit Claws, and a day 1 golden craft. I rated Giggling Inventor a 4, on par with Vilespine Slayer. I think I rated it close. But right now, if I knew now what I knew then, I would have made 2 golden Giggling Inventors instead of my Floop's Glorious Goop, because I would have made that dust back, because there's no way they're leaving this the way it is.
Whenever I opened my packs, I opened 5 golden giggling inventors.
Did you keep them all?
No.
Okay. Well, you messed up, but that's okay. Oh, and also
This was on day 1 when I didn't realize it was everywhere.
No.
So.
And you clicked the dust button.
I don't keep any golden cards. So even if it's played everywhere, Just don't keep gold.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time you made a mistake about keeping cards or not keeping cards, but we don't have to go into that right now. There is one more score that I forgot to give. There's 7, and that's Starliner only. I gave that a 7 for obvious reasons. So the point here is, I thought Giggling Inventor was going to be good, but here is a sobering statistic. Sottle asked the question of a ratio question. All the Giggling Inventors in one pile, and the other pile you take all the Blood Knights and all the Mossy Horrors that are going to be in EU prelims, right? So ratio of Giggling Inventors to the combined Mossy Horrors and Blood Knights, which are the anti-Giggling cards. And for every 8 Inventors, there are 7 anti-Inventor cards. 8 to 7.
This legit feels like Dr. Boom to Gul'dan, or not Gul'dan, BGH ratio.
Yes. Or Corridor Creeper to other Corridor Creepers, I guess. I don't know. There's not really a good comparison there. But, like, it's 8 to 7, and we talked about it last week. In the top 64 decks at the last tournament, there were 36 with Giggling Inventor. More than half the decks in the format. And you look at, I'm reading down the Vicious Syndicate tier list, right? Stop me when I get to a deck that does not play Giggling Inventor. Odd Warrior, Token Druid, Cube Hunter, Odd Paladin, Big Spell Mage, Control Warlock, Odd Rogue. Big Spell Mage, I think, actually plays it. I don't know about Control Warlock.
Yeah, it probably does now.
Don't know about Control Warlock. It probably does. Odd Rogue definitely does. Odd Paladin definitely does. Cube Hunter definitely does. Token Druid definitely does. Odd Warrior definitely does. So we've got hard aggro, hard control times 2, wide board aggro, mid-range death rattle, mid-range combo, and another hard control deck, and they're all playing this card. Something's got to give. And I don't even think that it's necessarily bad for the format. It's just bad for deck building. Because the format, I worry, is actually being opened up to these slower decks because of Giggling Inventor. I think it's one of the first times ever that they're really allowing these slower strategies, these mid-rangey death rattle strategies, which historically have been very poor, to exist. You see all these slower decks, and the highest performing aggro decks, Odd Paladin and Odd Rogue, are barely above 50%, and that's 2 of the 7 decks currently listed above 50% on Vicious Syndicate. I worry a little bit that even with the aggro tools as weak as they are right now, and Giggling Inventor is increasing the diversity of the format by allowing poorer decks to overperform stabilizing in the mid-game, and they need to change it because every single deck just goes to the 5 slot and puts in 2 Inventors, and people playing so many 6-mana 2/7s and 3-mana 3/3s isn't healthy, but it is enabling slower strategies to exist in a way that we haven't seen in a long, long time, if ever.
I think this format is very reminiscent of last format. It feels like a lot of the same decks are really strong, except now they have Inventors, and Odd Warrior has Dr. Boom.
And a bunch of other cards that I am dying to talk about during my section, so go before I do.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about mechs as a whole as well. I know Botticus copied over this. I think this was this what I wrote in the
Yeah, this is what you talked about. Kind of, it was in general. I think it was kind of all of our feelings about what we thought of Magnetic, because it was right after we had seen Magnetic and only seen a couple cards from it, and just how well did we rate Mechanic as a mechanic, or Magnetic as a mechanic. And basically what we said is Magnetic is something that's really hard to evaluate, but there's a good chance that whatever we evaluate it at, it's going to be better than that. We probably undervalue how good it's actually going to end up being. But a lot of it really depends on kind of what cards they create for us to be able to magnetize onto. And basically just we think that the mechanic's going to be a lot better than the community's perception of whatever it ends up being. And I think we were right to a certain degree on that. I do think that Magnetic is actually quite strong. It's just a matter of finding decks where it really can shine. But every time I see a deck that has some form of Magnetic in it, that it always feels pretty powerful to me. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Did you say
Yeah.
mechanic?
I don't know. Magnetic mechanic. It's
a
too close.
mechanic. It's a
Yeah,
mechanic.
I get it.
It's a mechanic
get it.
based around mechs. It's do you punned without realizing it. I'm so proud of you.
Oh God.
And I want to point out, I do think magnetic is really good. I think it's better than people expected, but that's also because everybody is playing multiple 1/2 Divine Shield Taunt mechs in their deck. Because Giggling Inventor is busted. Everyone has mechs for free. When you have mechs for free, magnetic doesn't have downside. And Ziliax, fine card you play. Bronze Gatekeeper, I think you could probably compare and contrast with Tar Creeper, and it's fine, again, if you have something to stick it on. But when Giggling Inventor comes out of the meta, that's when I'm curious to see if other magnetic cards see play. Spider Bomb does right now because you can trigger it with a lot of stuff, but again, you can graft that onto an Annoyotron, and otherwise I don't know if Cube Hunter is going to be playing these mechs after it loses the most powerful free mechs that it's already playing.
Yeah, there's an odd Paladin build that's been around since the expansion came out with Glowtron and Wargear and stuff, and Wargear feels really, really strong whenever you're playing against it. That card feels real bad to play against if your opponent's playing with it well. If they're reading around you having spot removal, then they play a 5/5 along with their other threat. If they're reading that you don't have spot removal or a silence, then they just blessing of Wargear on their mech and start getting to work. And I'm actually gonna kind of have a little spoiler here for what we're gonna talk about next week, but I think magnetic is even more powerful than I think we're giving it credit for right now. And I think part of that is due to how much pressure Spreading Plague and Giggling Inventor are kind of putting on the format. And we'll talk about that next week because I want to talk about Spreading Plague and how it's warping the format around it. But anyways, let's get into. I guess we'll just start with my cards. I kind of used the video that I did for Tempo Storm. It was the top 10 predictions for Boomsday that I did the script for. And I have 3 hits, 1 kind of miss, and then 3 misses from the video. The hits I had were Doubling Imp, Topsy Turvy, and Dr. Boom. And Doubling Imp is actually better than I thought it was going to be because I didn't really connect the dots between Soul Infusion and Chain Gang and Doubling Imp. I just kind of thought of it with Keleseth. So that one kind of surprised me with how good it was. It was even better than I imagined. And Topsy Turvy surprised me because I knew it was going to be a tech card or adding consistency to Divine Spirit decks. But I kind of thought about that with Divine Spirit and Inner Fire and not with making infinite boars and test subjects and stuff. So I didn't even see that coming at all. So that one kind of surprised me too. And I definitely did think Dr. Boom was going to be really strong at producing incremental values as a game went on, but I didn't think it would be so powerful as to be part of the reason why Odd Warrior is seeing a lot more play. It gives Odd Warrior if the opponent isn't doing much, Dr. Boom can kind of be a checkmate on his own. If armor's not what you're looking for, like if you're not playing against Druid, if you're playing against something else slow, Dr. Boom can produce enough value to where he can just win the game on its own eventually, which I think is really cool. And I didn't really think of him as that strong. I thought of him as a pretty solid card, but he kind of surprised me with how good he is, like how actually good he is in the late game scenarios. Juicy
I like
Psych-
I was just gonna say with Dr. Boom, I like how much value he adds when he's active, where it's a good amount of value. It feels like the hero power is definitely upgraded, but it doesn't feel so overwhelming that it's unbeatable.
Yeah, every time when I'm playing with Dr. Boom and I press the hero power, I'm like, I'm not winning the game based off this hero power. This isn't like a Rexar, like beat you over the head with like value. This is in 5 turns after pressing this hero power, I will probably have amassed a card or 2 worth of advantage.
And look at the difference between 2 mana deal 3 damage 1 out of every 4 turns or 2 mana, deal 3 damage every turn while healing your own face for 3.
Yeah, that one feels also fairly oppressive.
Yeah, well, it's a little different in design philosophy, and
this definitely
Yeah.
gives me hope for, really gives me confidence in how they're designing hero cards. With Hagatha before this, and then
Oh,
Doctor
yeah.
Boom now, they're both really, really well designed. I thought Hagatha was not going to be very playable, but that one surprised me. I mean, because shaman spells is just like, you don't want to put them in your deck most of the time, but a random shaman spell for free is sweet. And like, both of them have not overpowering effects, but if they're up for long enough, then you're going to start getting buried in the advantage that they accrue you. So I really like those hero cards as opposed to the original set of 9. There are some within those that are, I think, really well designed, but there are a few that are really arguably too strong. But anyways, my next card on this list is Juicy Psych Melon, and it's sort of a flop and sort of a hit. And sort of a flop because whenever I put this card on the list, I was thinking about it in Wild, because Togwoggle Druid was a deck in Wild before, and I was like, okay, this is just gonna go in that deck. It's gonna be solid. It's gonna be a nice card draw. But I also thought it would be played more in Standard, and it hasn't really been played very much in Standard because the Malagos deck doesn't really want this. It's more of a tempo deck as opposed to a combo deck, so it doesn't really want the Psych Melon. And yeah, I kind of overvalued its use in Standard, and I undervalued exactly how strong Druid would be in Wild, because that deck is nuts. Both of those decks, the Togwoggle and Starliner ones, are really, really strong. The misses I wanted to go over were, I think the one that I just straight up missed on, like, I think the card's just not very good. Well, that actually might not be true. Well, the card is Unexpected Results. And I thought this card would be really, really good in Tempo Mage. And I'm not going to say that it's not a good card. I'm going to say that it's serviceable. And the kind of game you're trying to fight whenever you're putting Unexpected Results in your deck is not the kind of game that the format is playing right now. That's not really what Tempo Mage can really afford to be playing towards, is that kind of game plan, like focusing on the board and stuff. They need to get in chip damage the first 4 or 5 turns and then immediately pivot to burn to be able to win a lot of the time. That's actually kind of why we're not seeing a lot of Tempo Mage. It's because they have to go to that burn game plan, and Odd Warrior gains 1,000,000 armor and Druid gains 1,000,000 armor. So I think part of the reason why it's not seeing play also is because Tempo Mage isn't that great. So there's not different variations of Tempo Mage.
I missed really hard in this card as well, but Mage has 2 archetypes right now. 2, right? You are Fireball the Face or Frost Lich Jaina. That is all you can do. And if you try and do both in the same deck, you lose because you're not good at doing either. And the Alaneth deck right now is just, it's very polarized and very particular. Now, if you want to beat Quest Rogue, this is the most polarized matchup in the game. Currently on Vicious Syndicate, it's a 92% win rate for the Mage, which is the biggest number I have ever seen. But it only beats that deck. Doesn't really beat anything else. But if you want to beat Quest Rogue, that's the way to go. But it's that and Big Spell Mage, which is fine. It's a good deck. But think about Deathstalker Rexar. We just talked about how great that card was. In the meta, where it was released in, everyone is making 1 mana 10/10s with Jade Idol and playing UI on 4. And then post-nerf, everyone's killing you from 30 with Raza. And then bone marrying you, or corridor creeping you, or call to armsing you. Rexar was not good until K&C came out, and they printed Candleshot, Wandering Monster, Spellstone, and Roctalar, which were pretty good for Hunter, actually. And then Witchwood came out with Houndmaster Shaw, also pretty good. Oh, and also K&C had, I forgot about this, the Recruit mechanic, which was pretty good, historically speaking, and Witchwood gave it a 3/12 taunt that it pulls out of the deck. So I believe that Unexpected Results is an efficient enough card to see play if the tools are ever there to support it. but there is no mage deck right now that has any interest in committing to the board in the mid game. You either give up the board or clear the board. Those are the two things. And Mad at Arms is pointing out in our chat, Mad at Arms, one of the 3 hosts on Hero Power, before us on Wednesday nights, go check him out, pointing out that Rexar was originally printed with only the pool of beasts that were available at the time of his release. And they updated him to actually be current beast because that actually makes sense. And it's now a much better card than only the beast that was printed with. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, Hat just takes my thoughts and condenses them into way more efficient bites. So I was thinking exactly what Hat was saying. So the next card,
I
what was
don't
it?
think unexpected results will ever be very good. I think you need a deck that spell damage needs to be a part of it, but also it needs to be a somewhat mid-rangey deck that also that can have spells in it. Whereas right now the mage decks are just not conducive to a 4-mana spell. 4-mana spell is just not the spot that you want it in. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really get why you guys were high on that card. I don't think, but I could definitely eat my shoe
Well,
later.
it just comes from playing a bunch of Tempo Mage on my end, and what the deck really wants in a vacuum is ideally they'll go 1, 2, 3, and then be out of stuff to do. And usually they're either arcane intellecting or holding burn spells at that point, or some other nonsense 4-drop like Life Drinker or some garbage. And in the way that the games play out like that, frequently then unexpected results would be pretty decent, like even if it just gives you 2/2 drops. But the fact is the Tempo Mage can't really afford to try and do that right now in the format. It'll just get destroyed by
It
all
also
the other
has
decks doing busted things.
It also just has a much better 4-drop in Cosmic Anomaly. That card is
Yeah.
real good for the deck.
I
And you can
think
only
that
have so many 4-drops.
the deck
That
that this
one-
card is good in doesn't exist yet, and I hope it does
Yeah.
at some point because I want some kind of mid-range mage that's not mid-range mage that is not an embarrassment. Because this card, if you buff it one time and have an even board going into it, you get more than you pay for. And that is what I like. That 2 3/3s for 4 mana, even if they're random, is more than you pay for. Not by a lot. And you're probably right that it won't work out, but I hope that Mage gets the treatment that Hunter got. Because Mage has historically been 2 or 3 decks, right? You have the control builds, you have the aggro builds, and you have the combo-y builds that stall the game forever because Ice Block existed. And Mage has been dictated entirely by its classic cards for a long, long time, just like Hunter was. Hunter was either aggro with high main, or without high main, or mid-range with high main, and that was it. And then they printed so many interesting cards for Hunter that even though Rexar is probably a mild mistake, the diversity that Hunter has seen in the past 6 months is unbelievable and an unprecedented reinvention and renaissance of an entire class that we've never seen before. We've talked about Control Hunter as a meme for years, and there are now viable builds of decks that do just that. So I'm really happy they exist. I hope Mage gets that. And mark your calendars, August 29th, 11:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is where I'm going to call back. If Unexpected Results is ever good, I'm going to call out Bot specifically and say, so Bot, would you say that this was an unexpected result? I'm telling you the joke now. The punchline will still be funny later if it ever happens. 8:29 p.m.
You can
Fu-
always
funny
just call
seems-
back. You
funny
can always
seems
just call
subjective.
back to a bit of call to arms.
No.
Anytime you want to prove me wrong about card evaluations.
I don't want to prove you wrong. I want to make a bad joke now and be able to point back at it later and you to roll your eyes even harder. It has nothing to do with shaming you. It has to do with making you roll your eyes at me.
This
That's
is
the
like
point.
that Chappelle bit wherever he started by telling us the punchline and then told us the story like 20 minutes later into the show and then hit us with the punchline and he was like, I told y'all it was coming.
That's what I'm doing. I'm calling my shot, not because I'm trying to prove you wrong, just because I want you to know where we're going with this.
All right, so my
I'll
next
accept
card
that.
that I wanted to talk about was Spirit Bomb. And I'm listing this one as a miss, not because it's not powerful. It does see some play in Even Warlock. I think the card's still good. It's just, it's not, the even Warlock decks are kind of full of what they want right now. Have enough spot removal where they don't really need Spirit Bomb. Some lists like will run one copy, but usually the 2-drop spell of choice that they're playing is combo disruption in the form of Demonic Project. And I think if the meta starts shifting a little more back to mid-range, like 3 and 4-drop minions that are must kills, then you'll see more Spirit Bombs. Or if we start shifting to a format like we had before, where there's a little more Shutter Walk and Big Spell Mage, then I think you might see some Spirit Bombs, because you need to kill Mana Tides and Acolytes cleanly without expending bigger resources and also getting your life total low in those matchups. Your Hook Reavers are online. But for now, Spirit Bomb's a miss, because I thought it would see more play than it's seeing. And put Biology Project on here too. I don't think it's a miss in terms of power level. I still think the card is real strong, but I think the Druid decks right now that are seeing the most play aren't as much focused on just pure ramp as opposed to overall card quality of each of their individual cards. So that's why we're seeing just Wild Growth and Nourish, and then Twig, I guess, as ramp, because they want each of their individual cards to be powerful and not have any dead draws in the mid game, or quote unquote dead draws. Biology Project is really good with Auctioneer and the Mechathune deck, and I think Hat's the one who said that Biology Project with Auctioneer is real strong, and it is. Those turns are nuts. They are busted. But I think the only reasonably competitive deck that Biology Project goes in right now is Taunt and Big Druid, that their main game plan is get to 9 as fast as possible, because we're going on an adventure with Master Oakheart. So those are the decks that are playing Biology Project, and when you play it, whenever you're playing with that card and making it as efficient as possible, it feels really busted. But for right now, the best Druid decks in the format aren't focused on sheer ramping. So I'm labeling it as kind of a miss, but I still think the card's really strong.
So I guess that kind of segues into mine, because the first card I thought that I was fairly right on was Biology Project. I'm actually interested to ask Hat if he still thinks Biology Project is a top 3 card of the set, because I believe that's what you said a couple episodes ago, right after the set
It
had come out.
is, and probably not. I do think that Appa was right when he called the card the most underused ramp card ever, or incorrectly used ramp card ever, because there was a I think it was Zeroshio that was talking about it in the UHL Discord, and he posted a replay where they were both playing Druid. He was on Taunt Druid, and his opponent, who was a Mali Druid, played Bio Project in turn 1. And it's just like, gimme. I'll take that mana now.
Whenever I'm playing against another Druid, that's never getting played until we're both at 10 mana. That's an innervate now.
Yes, it is an innervate. That is exactly right. And so I think it is misunderstood, but also it was a predatory card when the format was less refined. I do think it is a very strong effect, and I do think there are metas where it is useful, but I think that I definitely guessed over on the card, and the first 3 days didn't end up being indicative of where the format was heading, because it seemed like a really heavy combo format, and then I hit Legend with Odd Warrior, and it's like, oh, this is different. So
the first 3 days were straight nonsense.
Again, the first game I ever played in this format, I lost to a Mechathune. The first game. So that's kind of the direction I went in. But yeah, I would no longer call it a top 3 card of the set. I'm actually going to think about it while you're talking about what my top 3 are. So
okay, well, I am lower on it than both of you. I think that there are metas where this card could be a very powerful one, but as we kind of see, it is not very prominent, especially in most of the Druid decks that are being successful right now. I think it's the biggest hindrance to this card is that the format is so powerful and there are so many powerful cards in it that not only is this card extremely hard to play, but it allows the other decks that are doing very powerful things to be able to do them better or just earlier, or it's not the effect that you want to be giving other decks, because obviously you don't want to do it against other druid decks, but even all of the other decks just make really good use of that mana and do it in ways that are very powerful. So I was pretty happy that I did not rate the card nearly as highly as most people were rating it. And I don't think any of us overrated it by a ton, but I know there were a lot of pros saying that this card was just overly busted, and it just appears to not be the case right now. I will say that after the episode after we kind of went over some of the cards, and I was saying that I was talking about this card, I will say in Discord, I was like, just cut out the part where I say the card wasn't good, because every single druid deck a couple days after was playing Biology Project and eventually started coming out of the decks. But yeah, I think it's about where I kind of expected it. And the other card I have on here that I got right was Floop's Gloop. Yeah, if you're attacking with minions and Token Druid, then you don't need this card 9 times out of 10. It's useful in the Mech Cthulhu Druid deck, but I'm sorry, that just is not really a thing. I guess it's kind of a thing, but not compared to the other druid. I'd rather be playing any other druid decks unless I'm really trying to meme other than Mech Cthulhu Druid. And yeah, the situations you have to set yourself up in to make this card really good are so few and far between that I just don't think that this is a good card. The things I definitely got wrong were class winners and losers. Hat, I think, posted this in our Discord about what we said about winners and losers for the set, and I'm just looking at the classes I thought were winners. Druid, which sure, but Shaman, Priest, and I have Warrior, I guess, but Shaman and Priest are basically nowhere. And then losers I had Rogue, Warlock, and Hunter, which are very, very prominent now. Yeah.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, that is just a huge miss. So I definitely...
That's like you swung, and then the bat flew out of your hands and hit somebody in the stomach.
Yeah. So I was not able to predict decks very well, or decks that I thought would be powerful, which I'll have to think about a lot more for the next time we do ratings. And then just the card Ziliax, I didn't realize just how powerful it was to give decks like Hunter and Rogue, which traditionally do not have good defensive mechanics to them. I was not expecting this card to give those decks a bit of defensive power they haven't had access to in the past. So that was a card that I think is actually quite good, and I did not expect it to be nearly as good as it ends up being. That's all I had. What about you, Hat?
Well, and I agree with you on Ziliax. I think we all kind of underestimated Magnetic, even though we talked about it in the show as being underrated. Putting it on random mechs is gaining that life is really, really relevant, and a taunt with Bubble and Lifesteal and Rush is really valuable from a defensive position. It's surprisingly good. Rush, I think, is just a mechanic that I'm really happy exists, because I think it's great for the game, it's super interesting, and when it's good, it's very good, because you think about how Houndmaster Shaw is probably the best Hunter Legendary ever printed, and if you leave it up, it feels like leaving up a Thaurissan. It's just like, I know I'm going to lose now, and I don't know how, but it's going to be bad. It's a 3/6, right? So you can't kill it. It's not like Sony Shadow Dancer, which I learned the other day, thanks to Puzzle Mode, has an attack sound. I'd never heard that before, but when you attack with it, it makes a noise. Either way, I'm going to talk more about, I think, mostly my misses, and there are quite a few of them. I do think that I rated Super Collider a 1. And Super Collider, I'm sorry. If I'm rating my top 5 cards of the set, I think this makes it. If it's top 3, I think it's just out of the top. but it's really, really good against any decks that are trying to go tall. It's really good against Giggling Inventor, and it's really good in combination with a button that says gain 4 armor. And I talked about it last week. Super Collider punishes your opponent for playing multiple minions, and your hero power punishes your opponent for not doing that. So you really kind of leave them between a rock and a hard place with the Baku Warrior. It's been incredibly powerful, super demoralizing to play against, because when you're against a warrior, and you have 2 minions out, and then they kill both of them with 1 attack, and then you look at the 2 minions left in your hand, you're like, well, what do I do now? Just play them both? I guess so? I think that card is really, really incredible, and I rated it 1, and I was super wrong. Now, the Shaman cards, I was really high in Electra, Thunderhead, and Voltaic Burst. I do think there's something there, and I like the Ike Shaman. I've been practicing a lot with it, I've been testing with it, and there are builds that have Thunderhead and Voltaic Burst. And I think that synergy is going to be relevant someday. I don't know what it's waiting for. It is too strong when playing with it to not be relevant. I just think the support cards might not be there, or the strategy might not be what's attacking the format in the right way right now, especially with Devilsaur Egg being a big thing, and especially with Defile being a big thing. But I do think that if Thunderhead does not see consistent standard play at some point in its lifespan, I will be absolutely shocked. And that's not a lightning joke, it's just a fact. I think that I do think I evaluated this correctly, but I did not correctly evaluate the meta it was landing in. And Electra's a really good card. Seeing play, I think it's a great card, and Shutterwalks are playing it. And the Mimi cards, Mechathune I thought would be instant dust. It's not. I crafted it. Subject 9, I opened it and I was upset, and then Subject 9 is in a Hunter deck that's good. It's a good card. Like crazy. It's like Azure Drake, except it draws you a bunch of secrets and doesn't have spell damage and is a beast. It's a beast. Did you guys know it's a beast?
Yes, because you see it on Rexar every once in a while.
Yes. It's a good card. Like, you just load up on secrets and then play the Spellstone, then Subject 9 and load your hand back up. It's surprisingly good. And I was wrong about Spider Bomb too. I thought the card was undertuned. I thought it was inefficient. It's being played a lot right now. I
was so off on Spider Bomb.
Yeah.
I thought I was looking at it and it seemed like there was something there, but I was like, no, there's nothing, right? There's nothing. And then there was something. There's a lot of. It's very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I overrated unexpected results. We talked about that. I did get almost all the rogue cards right, except I called Blight Nozzle Crawler really bad. And when you can curve 3 mana Necrium Blade into 4 mana play this and kill a thing, it is a lot closer to Vilespine than you might think. And then when you cube it, and then you bring it back, and then you vial it, you just get to keep clearing the board. Or, if you have the Poisonous 1/1 and Sonya Shadow Dancer, you have a lot of Poisonous 1/1s. It's, I was wrong about Blight Nozzle Crawler. I think I got the rest of the rogue cards about right. And I do think Death Rattle Rogue is probably more of a meme. More of a month 1 strategy than anything to persist. It's so much work for the payoff that you get out of it when everything else is just a little bit less work for a little bit more. And then I thought about my top 3 cards, and I think my top 3 cards of the set, in terms of power level and impact, Giggling Inventor is obviously number 1. And I think my top 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all, I think, about the same. I think you have to put Floop on there. And I don't even know. After they Hall of Fame Mally, I don't know if Floop will still be that important, because they've got a Hall of Fame Mally. It's gonna get to the point where Mally has been fringe playable for years, but never actually this good for this long. I think it's gonna be good for the rest of its time in this year, and I think that they Hall of Fame it every time. And Floop hasn't been good outside of that. I do think it's fun in Spiteful Druid, because it's another Spiteful, but I think Floop is only good with degenerate cards. So it's the cube, right? It's a cube where it makes broken cards better.
Also, Giggling Inventor. That card's gonna have to get changed for Floop to Floop to get worse too.
Yep, because you play it as a 3/4 Giggling Inventor for 4 really often, really often. Probably has to be Floop. I think Demonic Project is surprisingly holding a lot of the format together. I think you have to play it, and I think that because it's important, even though the effect is not always good, dictates the nature of the format, and I think that means it's one of the better cards in the set. Even if it's not better because you play it, it's better because it exists. Its existence changes the format. But then, rounding out my top 5 are the 2 Warrior cards. There's Super Collider and there's Dino-Matic, which has incredibly impressed me. Every single time I play that card.
That card.
Oh, it's
That
so
card is
good.
so yeah. That card, the 3/4 body is just. It feels. A lot of times it kind of feels like Vilespine Slayer that you didn't have to combo.
Yeah, and it kills multiple
It's-
minions. You didn't even have to
yeah.
work that hard. It's
Yeah,
someday we're
the-
gonna learn. We're just gonna go into every new set file. We're gonna look for cards that are minions that kill other minions when you play them, and just say that card's good right now. And just every time we're gonna do it, and we're gonna get it right someday.
Yeah, that was a card that the effect was obviously really strong on, but I was kind of afraid to go one way or the other on it because I kind of had conflicting opinions on it. I thought the card could be really good if we weren't in a mech environment, but I didn't know how much of a mech environment we would be in, you know? Like if we had more mech hunter, mech paladin, stuff like that, the Dynamatic would be substantially worse, but we don't, so the card's nuts.
I'm actually really sad that I did not go a little bit harder on Super Collider because I felt like there was something there. I do remember mentioning on the cast where we talked about it that the effect is extremely powerful, and I wish I would have kind of delved a little bit more into that because I think that there's obviously something there, and the card is kind of blows me away just how good it is. I was mostly worried about the fact that you couldn't go face with it, but it just the fact that people can't play two minions together and you're just not able to place taunts in position. I was worried that you were going to be able to play taunts in positions that were going to make it really difficult for the Super Collider to do what you needed it to do, but it's so hard to play around that card, even just looking at the decks where it's really good against.
Yeah, it's that
Yeah.
feeling I get whenever somebody plays Scourgelord Garrosh against me, and then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm getting 2 for 1 here, and then my next 2 things are just dying. So this Garrosh is eating 4 of my things.
Or
That's
we're
how I
like
feel with Super Collider.
when you're an odd paladin and the mage plays Frostlet Chain, and you just look at that hero power, and you're like, well, I guess I'm never using this again. Yeah, it's there are those moments where, or it's like that feeling you get when your opponent's Psych Melon's on turn 3 in Wild, and you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna die in 3 turns. It's yeah, I agree 100%. And but I love that you say couldn't go face with it, man after my own heart. But there's playing this deck has awakened the first deck that I ever lost to so hard that I went out and sold my Magic Online collection to buy was Wallet Warrior, was Shield Maiden Control Warrior with exactly 5 threats: Dr. Boom, Alexstrasza, Ysera, Ragnaros, I think, and there was one more big thing.
Sylvanas.
Fatigue.
Sylvanas, yes, Sylvanas. And there were 5 threats, and there were 2 shield slams and 2 executes, and then the shield maidens and all that, and both decks fatigued. And that was the first deck I ever lost to so badly that I was like, I have to play this now. Oh, Grom Hellscream. Remember that guy? Man, I miss Grom Hellscream. Anyways, I remember the feeling of pressing the button and the screws starting to tighten, the opponent just being locked in this cage they could never get out of, even if they drew the perfect card. I had a Gore Howl up, and I was at 40 armor, and who cares? And playing this deck again and having that feeling, people won't concede. They'll run the clock down. They will wait until they fatigue. They will wait until you can kill them. They don't care. And that feeling of them being so salty that they want to trap you in this game, it's like, no. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
Yeah, like a game's just obviously over and they won't concede, and it's like, all right, I enjoy this. We can continue.
I'd like to say the game is obviously over.
You're just firing off just all episode, aren't you, Hat? You're usually like this, but you're just on a whole different level this episode.
He's firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some kind of mech joke here, but I'm just gonna kind of soak in this feeling I have.
I was thinking about it. I couldn't think of one though.
Yes, I'm sure there's we'll figure something out.
You're You're going so hard, it's like you're a machine. All right, let's do the outro.
I'm gonna edit
We're
that out,
going too
Appa.
deep.
That's getting edited out.
Thank you.
How long can this go on?
Well, it turns out this week, surprisingly brief, and I want to point out this will be the 5th episode in a row under 2 hours, boys. We're getting there. We're doing it.
Is that something to celebrate?
I think there's something to celebrate for finding our streamlined niche and voice, and I feel confident that the listeners that want longer episodes, all they got to do is wait till next card reveal season, and they can start packing their lunch now, because it's gonna be a while.
Let's just be real. Hat's celebrating not having to edit the cast for infinite hours on Friday.
So
That is something to celebrate. I mean, I think it is.
I can neither confirm nor deny, but what I can confirm is that we want to thank Stefan for letting us use his cover. Check him out in his channel, link in our show notes. Big thanks to Hearthstone Top Decks and BeerBreak.com for decklist, Hearthstone Tournaments on YouTube for tournament VODs, and Hearthstone for their tournament recaps. Show notes for this week's episode are on CoinConcede.com on our website. Support our show at Patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at Twitch.tv/CoinConcede Join our community chats in our Discord, Discord.CoinConcede.com. Write into our email at CoinConcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. If you'd like some CC swag, heading over to our old shop at shop.coinconcede.com and our new shop just being set up at Dad Legend. We have one design now. More will be porting over in the coming weeks. Big thanks to our producers, Viriatus, Arrow, who has changed his name to, and I'm going to edit in the notes now, to Tacos. Respect. I'm also a big fan of tacos. And
It's so fluffy!
Fluffy. Also a big shout out to the Badass Women of Hearthstone tournament, live on GoFundMe right now to try and set up and honor Toast the Badger's memory with a tournament that she was planning. And then props to the leagues that we are involved in, Into the Wild League and United Hearthstone League. Both are going on. IWL has started now. Taylor is 2-0. Appa is casting. Everything is great. And UHL is starting in, I think, about a week and a half now. And I am playing in that as returning champion once upon a time, but not the most recent champion, but that's not important right now. And an undefeated season, not in the same season that I won the championship, also not important right now. Appa, who would you like to coin concede to this week?
I'm going to coin concede to Wicked Good because we had the first game, I think, of Into the Wild League was casted by us. I think it was the first game. Anyways, I casted with Wicked Good for the first time, and it was a pleasure. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed casting with him a lot.
He's so great to cast with.
And
I
yes,
enjoyed it every time.
yes, Brasky. I am casting UHL and Into the Wild League.
Wait, he wants a Brasky Appacast. That's a Brappa or an ASCII?
I think Brappa sounds better.
Yes.
Rappa the Rappa. All right. My
oh my god, that game was so good. Keep going.
my next coin concede is actually going to be to, you may know her as Taylor Eve or Dr. Evil _HS on Twitter. But for those of you who don't know, she is my fiance, and she's really good at Hearthstone. She never gives herself enough credit. I don't think she's ever been in a tournament before because she's just always anxious and self-deprecating and never believes in herself. And she's 2-0 in Into the Wild already. She 3-0'd her second match and then 3-1'd her first match. And I'm like, see? And she's like, I just got lucky. I'm like, bruh, you're 2-0. Come on. So it's nice to be able to watch her games and see her win, even though I can't cast her because I sit. She sits like 2 feet this way on my left.
Yeah, 3-0ing is not a fluke.
Yeah.
You don't get 3-0 wins, just...
She's also been showing off her crazy deck building with Reno, Shutterwalk, Nazoth, Shaman, and Reno Quest, Nazoth, Priest.
Just keep going. Just keep saying more words. I don't know what's going to happen. Just keep saying words.
She's like, let's take this greedy deck. And how do we make it greedier? Add Nazoth. Oh, Shutterwalk too. Okay, let's just jam these together. And she just wins games with them.
Okay,
so it's a lot of fun to watch.
Appa, I have 4 words for you, and by that I mean for her, and by words I mean syllables. Are you ready?
Okay.
Benedictus.
Yeah, she didn't put that in there. And she was playing against Wildcard yesterday in her match, and he also had a Quest Priest, but his had Benedictus in it. And thank God they did not get paired up against each other.
Oh boy.
That's 2 decks.
Yeah, it's just
But,
you
yeah.
wouldn't want like 2 decks just benedicting back and forth. So much
So
benediction.
those are my 2 shout-outs, 2 coin concedes to Wicked Good and Dr. Evil. So check them out. They're great people.
Yes, I agree. Botticus, want to coin concede anybody?
So I would like to coin concede, and it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I love you too. Hat and Appa, I'm coin conceding to you this week because while my drive for playing the game of Hearthstone right now is not at its highest, tonight has been amazing. I love casting with you guys. I just have such a great time, and I'm so lucky to be on the cast. I say it a million times, but it's so much fun to cast with you, or to cast with you guys. I have a great time. So thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for making tonight a lot of fun.
I put cop out in the show notes, but love you too.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Whenever my drive to play Hearthstone was not at its peak and I was feeling burnt out and stuff, the podcast was still like one of the best times of the week. It's just fun.
It's just
It's
so
fun
much,
to sit
just
and
so
just
much
talk.
fun. Yeah.
I turn off my air conditioner for both of you, and it's 90-ish with 60% humidity right now, so that says a lot.
If my AC made a buzzing noise, you'd have to deal with it. I'm not that dedicated.
Yeah.
That AC is staying on.
Probably a lot smarter than me, but I did hydrate most of the day, assuming that coffee and beer are hydrating, right? Don't tell me they're not. So, thanks, guys. Also have some coin concedes of my own. UHL obviously starting up. I'm playing. My THL team, the Pod People, played our first matchup of Season 10. We've been there since Season 4, and it's now Season 10, which is... We've been playing in THL for 2 years, kind of bonkers, but Mojo Powell started off 3-0 this week. Fantastic. Want to shout out to Edge SKL, Yatiers, and Wicked Good. They all put together the data from the EU prelim deck lists already and made super cool visualization tools and parsed it all and put it all together, and boy, I love data, and I wish it had been out an hour earlier so I could have gotten distracted by that and not finished the podcast show notes and we would have been late, but instead we were on time, so that's good. Yeah. And coin concede to Navalus and Andrew over on the Happy Hearthstone. Had a really great episode. Every time that Hearthstone hosts are honest about being human people and talk about things that happen inside and outside of the game, I think that's really, really just good to help us remember the humanity that we bring with us into the game of Hearthstone. And Navalus had a great episode guesting on Happy Hearthstone, talking about how he took a little break from the game and how it kind of revitalized him. And I actually believe that Hearthstone should not be the only game anyone plays. And I don't know if anyone should only have one game they play. I think everybody should have other games.
Yeah. The long break that I took was like one of the best things that could have happened to me as a Hearthstone player. Because I was just going too hard for too long and just focusing on exactly Hearthstone. And I was just like, I need a break.
Yeah.
It was great.
And I took a little break too, and I take pretty regular breathing room time after I hit Legend every month. And there's so many great games out right now. Not just World of Warcraft, not just Hearthstone, but Dead Cells and Into the Breach on the Switch. Battlechef Brigade just got a big update for the Fallen expansion. I think Forsaken is the name, is coming out for Destiny soon. Hollow Knight just got a DLC upgrade. There's so many good games out right now that August has felt almost overwhelming with content, and it's been great, but also hard to keep up with everything. And I'm grateful that Hearthstone scales to the level that I have the time for and responds to what I put into it in a meaningful way at all levels of engagement. Because you know what? Puzzle mode, fantastic for scratching the itch and staying involved, but not needing to grind and ladder. It's really, really nice to be able to adjust that, and for the community to recognize that as a thing that not only can happen, but should happen sometimes. So really appreciate Navalus and Andrew taking the time to highlight that this week. I think it was a really strong episode, and great for not just players at our level, but people that are involved with the game in all levels. It sent a really important message, and don't be afraid to diversify and play multiple games if your time can support it, because games are fun, and relying on one means you build kind of a dependency and a habit in ways that can end up becoming unhealthy. And I'm glad that we've all found ways to break out of that in our own way.
This outro has taken much longer than I thought it would. All right, Hat's yelling at me to do the contact info stuff. So, Botticus, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at BotticusHS. You can also find me in Discord. Botticus. Look for me. You should be on Discord if you're not, because Discord's amazing.
And our Discord community is awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Appa_HS, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/AppaHS, or on Discord. It's not just Appa, it's at Crescent, and then Align, and then Appa, because that's the team I play for. But yeah, I'm in those places. Hat, where can people find you?
You can find me on this show right here making awful puns, but you can also find me on Twitter at RidiculousHat, on Twitch at RidiculousHat. I've cut down my streaming schedule. The Mondays just aren't really working for me right now. I've got a little bit too much on my plate, so I made the decision to step back from the Mondays. Still Thursday nights, and we'll see if we can find a second night there, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it just to see what happens. And you can find me on Discord wherever Hearthstone is discussed at RidiculousHat. And
yeah, so keep calm and mech on. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Take cold comfort in your victory. You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing.
The day is yours.
I choose death. You have triumphed. This time, this hunt is yours.